Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, joined by Liam Carrigan, dialing in all the way from Japan. We've just watched the third pre-season friendly, Liam. It finished 3-2 against Celtic, unfortunately. Bit of a calamitous goal to lose in the second half. But we're going to be talking about some of the performances in there. We're trying not to get too much OTT because it is a friendly. It was behind closed doors. It's almost like a warm-up to the Sporting Lisbon game. Game time for the likes of Kieran Tierney, Nygren, which obviously we'll be digging into and discussing as well, and some of the other performances. We'll start off with Kieran Tierney then. Obviously, he played the first half of that match. Liam, he played at left back, and I think one of the most exciting things to look forward to this season will be a partnership, if you like, between him and Dyson Maeder down the left.
Yeah, definitely. That was. It's a shame we didn't get to see more of that in the second half, but yeah, that is going to be crucial. Funny, we talked about Ida at half time, and there he is again, getting a goal, gets us back into the game. So didn't take long for him to break his scoring duck for this season.
No, it did not. And we will definitely speak about Adam Ida because there's been a lot of discussion around what we're doing up top with regards to another striker coming in. That has indeed been the talk since Kyogo left the building. I think, yeah, with the Kieran Tierney thing, obviously all the chat, the kind of, what I would say is probably negative chat is around all the injuries and the fact that we're buying a player who hasn't played as much in the last few seasons as you would have expected. But when you look at Kieran Tierney in terms of the quality that he brings to this football club, the Champions League quality that we are looking for me, he just steps right and he slots right in there. And I don't think, in terms of his own game time, Liam, I don't think it will be a concern as long as we have a decent backup. Now, obviously, last season was a strange one with left backs, wasn't it? We brought in two. We brought in Jeffrey Schlupp, we brought in Alex Baye, who we might be facing when we play Como, or if we do. And I think that the interesting part there is neither of them are at the football club, and we've lost Greg Taylor. So none of the left backs we had last season are at the football club now. None of them. We brought in Kieran Tierney, and of course, Inamura has been utilised for 45 minutes today and against Cork City as well. And I'm asking myself, is he the guy that might fit in there? Because I think when I was looking at him and when we discussed him as a target, we were more or less thinking that he was more of a left-sided centre-back. But we've utilised him at left-back. What did you make of Tierney's performance in the first half, Inamura's in the second?
Well, I think okay, I'm biased. I want to see the Japanese players do well, but I think that there's enough there from Inamura to show that he is going to be the backup. He could be the backup, rather, to Kieran Tierney. I think there's enough there. Very attacking. He likes to get up that flank, doesn't he? And it was good to see him joining the attack so much. But again, the whole defence got cut out for that winning goal. So I don't know if you can, how much of that you can put down to Inamura and how much you can put down to just the entire defence going to sleep.
Yeah, that was the poor aspect of the second half. Again, not going OTT, but we need to get the basics right. And that was like a basic defensive error where there's a ball played through and you're 3-on-1, William Scales being that sole character. Listen, that's the kind of thing that you could be faced with in the qualifiers. It was just a hump up the park, Liam, and we didn't deal with it. There's no Ralston, Murray or Inamura, so it's hard to gauge where it all went wrong. Liam Scales ended up obviously fighting a losing battle and they scored the winning goal as it happened. Kieran Tierney is back. Really looking forward to seeing more minutes in his legs against Sporting Lisbon, then again against Newcastle United next weekend as well. A game I'm really looking forward to. Inamura, it's one of the ones where, you know, you're kind of doomed if you see either way at this stage, Liam. He's only played 45 minutes in pre-season. But he has looked good. There was a few, I think, stray passes in the second half by him this afternoon or this morning, rather. But I like his offensive approach. There was a moment he's drifted inside, almost like the inverted fullback, did a wee bit of work in the midfield. Yang kind of held back and sat into the left back position, and then they switched again. So I think in terms of his offensive play, I want to see more of Inamura. We'll probably see him in the second half against Sporting Lisbon, and he's obviously changed the opinion of the manager. Do you think anything in the first half will have changed the opinion in the manager when it comes to Marco Tilio? We spoke about him at half-time. He was hooked, of course.
Unfortunately not, because I think if the manager was reading into it the same thing that we were, he would have persisted with Tilio in the second half, and he didn't. So I think unfortunately Brendan Rodgers has maybe decided that we'll wait and see. I mean, we're only 2 games into the thing, but it doesn't look too good for Tilio at the moment. He's going to have to do something really outstanding to get any chance at a place in the team. So I don't see it the way things are right now.
There was a moment, Liam, where obviously when we signed Tilio and there was the show reels and all the rest of it, there were so many goals that he scores kind of cutting inside and then obviously firing it in from maybe 20, 25 yards. And there was a moment where he's broken away in the first half, and I'm thinking to myself, he's going to do it, and he cuts inside, and then it came to nothing. And I'm thinking that was the moment, do something to really make the gaffer step up and take notice. He was he is one of the kind of legacy signings of that first transfer window, where we lose Jota and we bring in 3 wingers. So we brought in Yang, Palma, and Tilio. We lost a quality player, and then we tried to replace him with guys not of the same kind of quality. When you look at the central defensive situation there as well, where we lose Carl Starfelt, we bring in, at the time, we brought on Nat Phillips, Gustav Lagerbielke, Mike Davrowski. So it was like we brought in 3 for the one player that we'd lost, and we didn't quite get it right. And some of those guys have left the building. Tilio, Yang, and Palma are still here. And I'm not quite sure. What's your take 2 seasons down the line of those 3 players going into their 3rd seasons as Celtic players? Tilio, Palma, Yang. Can any of the 3 of them be part of this season's starting 11?
The one that's got a chance is Yang, but I think his best chance is being part of the squad, not being a first-team starter. The fact that we've already signed a winger, despite letting Kuhn go, we have also signed a winger, and we're looking at getting at least one more winger in by the way things are going. I don't see any room for Palma or Tilio, unfortunately. Yang is always going to divide opinion, but again, I think he had a decent enough second half there when you account for the whole team not really being at the races. And yeah, he's the one that might still make it, but of the 3, I wouldn't be surprised if all 3 of them were gone within a month's time, let's be honest.
Yang's the one he's persevered with, isn't he? I mean, obviously Palma got some game time in the first half of the first campaign, but we've not hardly seen anything from that's the most Tilio's played for Celtic in one game, getting a full half. I'm going to bring in some of your comments. How did you think it went today? Obviously, it was 3-2. We can go to the cliches to say it's all about getting minutes in the legs, and it's about fitness, and it's about sharpness. And absolutely, I mean, this was a friendly game that was kind of like shoehorned into the fixture list as well for that kind of game time. So I totally get that. But we're going to be looking for some of the positives from that match as well. And I want to talk about, in just a moment after I've taken a few comments, Nygren's debut as well, because I think that was a positive. We'll start off with River C. As things stand, we're once again in a position where Forrest is our best winger. Murray is ready for the first team, says River C. Again, I like what we're doing with our keeper in between the centre backs. Desperately need a strong 6. Right, quite a few points in here. I'm going to start with the first one. James Forrest, they look sharp, Liam. And again, you're looking at a player like Forrest, and you're thinking to yourself, if he's the backup, then great. If he comes on for cameos, if he comes on for 30 minutes, if you can get him a few starts in domestic games, obviously to keep the sharpness up. But he's 34 years of age. He's got about, 500 plus games in his legs. He's a backup for me, but he does look sharp. And he looked sharp in the second half today, didn't he?
He looks sharp. He looks hungry. He was wanting to go and get involved. And that is what you like to see. And that's leadership as well. That comes with age and experience. And there's always going to be a place for that in the squad. So, yeah.
The leadership aspect of it, we talk about Kieran Tierney coming back and bringing that wealth of experience, the leadership, the fact that he knows the standards of the football club, and the other guys that are within the squad, they're few and far between, actually. You've got Callum McGregor, you've got Jamesy Forrest, you've also got Tony Ralston, who played right back in the second half. So I think that's vitally important. Dane Murray's another one, Rivers C. I've watched with interest, obviously. He played his debut was in Ange Postecoglou's first competitive game. It was a Champions League qualifier against Midtjylland. It was maybe a game too early at that stage of Postecoglou's reign. We didn't have all the bodies in the building, Liam, and people wonder why we worry about qualifiers. We didn't have all the bodies in the building at that point. And Murray was a player who came on due to the fact that you'll remember Nir Bitton got his red card. And then he started the return leg over there, didn't he, against Midtjylland? And he was a kid at the time, really, 17, 18 years of age. He's had some really, really bad injuries. He's had that spell out on loan at Queen's Park. He was recalled early. And Brendan Rodgers absolutely favours this player. He likes and backs Dane Murray. He said that last season, had Murray not got his injury late on in the season, Nawrocki wouldn't have got the games that he got, because Murray would have been that guy against Rangers, against Hearts. Murray would have got the game time. He rates him very, very highly. He's obviously come through the ranks. But it's now or never for me. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. I just think, right, he's at that stage now where the gaffer's backing him. He's going to be part of the first team squad this season. It's going to be completely different from last season where he was in and out, a bit part out on loan. He's going to be part of the first team squad, Liam. From what you've seen, are you happy with that? The fact that it looks as though he's the kind of backup for Cameron Carter-Vickers at the moment?
Again, happy to be part of the squad. I would have concerns about him starting. I don't think he's at that level yet. Truth be told, none of our B team look as if they're really ready to make that step up based on what I've seen so far. Again, it is very early to judge these things, but I'm not. We'd really need to get the B team out of the Lowland League and into some decent level of football. I keep saying it, but we're seeing it here. Games like this where we bring in the second string and the second string just are not up to it, because it's not their fault. They're just not used to playing at the level. This is a Portuguese league team we're playing today. All right, bounce game, whatever, but it's a decent level of football, and we don't have the second string that can step up to that level, unfortunately.
You've said something there that's important. It isn't the player's fault, and in many ways, I also think you've got to take a wee bit of that onus off the football club, because we're in an environment where Scottish football is not really built for youth development. The way that the league, even the league structure in terms of how many teams are in this league, there's absolutely no margin for error. It's not as though you can bleed the youngsters in, and I don't just mean Celtic when I talk about that. And then you look at the old school reserve, etc. That's never coming back. And then you've got a youth team more or less playing in the fifth tier of Scottish football, Liam. And as you say, that step up is too vast. There's no bridge between Lowland League and first team football, Premiership football. So absolutely, there's a lot of things there that I think are being considered at the moment. And I said at the beginning of the pre-match that it looks as though whatever Paul Tisdale's remit has been in relation to the women's team and the B team, we're certainly shifting a lot of bodies on. So these are guys who get to the age of 21, 22, sometimes even 23, and they don't have enough first team experience, Liam. So I think what they'll be doing is looking at a lot of the guys. Can we get them out to teams like Admira Wacker, teams like Queen's Park, get them game time, get them first team experience? And if not, it might actually mean that if you're maybe an underage player, 18s or below, you play B team football. If not, and you're not good enough in the squad, you get loaned out if you've not been part of the partnership. Because when you're looking at it, Joey Dawson, a guy who was in and around the B team, he's away back to Scunthorpe. Matthew Anderson got his move to Belgium. Daniel Cummins, of course, away to West Ham United. An interesting one the other day there was Liam Bonatig, if I get that pronunciation correct, away back to Australia. And you've got a young player away to Dunfermline and Alistair Davison. So it looks as though we are shelling a lot of them out, Liam, because it's not been very constructive, this B team inclusion. And I think we're going into the 6th or the 7th season of the B team being in the pyramid. Again, like what we're doing with the keepers, that last point, desperately need a strong number 6. Well, in the second half, Callum McGregor goes off and he's replaced by young Sean McArdle. So on the one hand, we're talking about youth development. McArdle comes on, brilliant for him to get the game time. Liam, absolutely superb. He's a 17-year-old. He's a kid who physically needs to develop, absolutely physically needs to develop. What do you do with a player like Sean McArdle in the new season? Is he a guy that you think, well, he's part of the first team squad now? Or do you think what we've just been discussing there, he needs more game time than he's going to get at Celtic, perhaps a loan deal to go out there and get that experience and toughen him up physically a wee bit as well?
Going on the assumption that we're going to sign at least one more midfielder, which again is not guaranteed, but that's what I think is going to happen. He goes out on loan because he needs any player, any young player that we think is a prospect, a genuine prospect, but is not yet quite first team ready, needs to go out on loan because the B team is just not going to cut it. So get them out there on loan. Ideally get them loaned to other Premier League teams in Scotland where they can, hurt the rotten mob across town. So that's what I'd be doing.
I've always said that in relation to, we remember Scalesy, we remember Bruni going to Aberdeen and damaging your opposition, your challenger. So I do like that, Liam. I also like the idea of a young player in terms of their own development mentally as well as physically and on the park. Going away to Austria, like, we had 2 players last season going over to Admira Wacker. They come back with 40-odd games in their legs, Obviously, it didn't quite work out at Celtic for one of them, but I've liked to look at Ben Summers, for example. You can tell Summers is way ahead of the guys that he's kind of left behind in Scotland. Liam, he's gone over there. He's obviously had to adapt to a new culture, a new environment, but he's playing first-team football, competitive football, albeit in the second tier. So I really am keen to get guys out there if they're not. But you make a point there about the midfield. And if we look up at the makeup of there, the midfield at the moment. So we've got obviously the guys we had last season in Rio Hatate, Callum McGregor, Arnie Engels, Luke McCowan and Paulo Bernardo. So there's the 5 first-team midfield players. Odom Thiago Home, he's been loaned out. He's in America. Who knows what the future holds for him, but he's not part of the plans at the moment. Then we signed Nygren, and when we signed him, looking obviously at his previous performances, where he's played on the park, he's played right side, he's played left side, he's played centre. But give the number 8 jersey to Nygren, and you see him playing today, and you're thinking, all right, so he's a creative midfield player, and that's what he looks. That's what he looks like to me. I don't know what the plans long term are going to be with Nygren, but if he is a creative midfield player, we've now got 6 first team midfielders, Liam. That's not a bad thing to have. It's absolutely that's the kind of dilemmas managers love. But what's the makeup of a midfield then if you're looking at those 6 bodies? Because this is following on from young McArdle and first-team opportunities. There might not be many this season. If there isn't, I'd much rather he went out on loan than go to the B team. I agree with you. But what about the other 6 guys there? What's the makeup here? Because it looks, and I hope, that we're running this season with all 6 of them. I wouldn't like to lose any of the guys.
No, definitely not. I think they've all got their part to play. I kind of touched on this with Colin on Thursday's show. We said that we were talking about how do we fit in all these different players? Why are we going for another striker, possibly 2, on top of what we have? And I had the idea that maybe we are going to change up the formation slightly and go to a 4-3-1-2. So in that case, you've got room for that number 10 creative midfielder, which could be Nygren, could be Shin Yamada when he comes in. He can play that role. If we follow up on Ambrosino, he's another one who can do it, play what they call the false 9. And these are all options. And I think today we saw that what we need is more options. Absolutely.
Well, this is the thing we've spoken about, I think, for the last 2 years when it comes to Brendan Rodgers and having options in terms of the shape of your side. And I know that we play differently in possession than when we're not in possession, etc. I get that, and we change, and it's not it's not stuck in its ways, if you like. But in terms of the way we've approached many of the games since Brennan came back, we would approach a match domestically against Ross County the same way that we have approached many European games. And it's about having the adaptability. And when I look at the midfield, when I look at the midfield six now, I'm thinking to myself, well, we're definitely giving ourselves more scope to change things up. And by the way, I know we played differently against Atalanta, for example. When you watch that game, far more defensively, Amadora playing a kind of lone striker role, Liam, where he was just chasing everything down and he didn't really have much backup. But yeah, looking at that, it could well be that we might be opening up the possibility of a different shape. Celtic follower, you're on X. Your name's Phil. Thank you for getting involved. Thought Kalmak's losing some pace. Hatate made our class, and Nigrin and Inamura showed good signs. Now, the Callum McGregor point there, Liam, it's like, we went through, I think, 4 seasons hearing the same about Scott Brown near the end of his time at Celtic. Every summer, there was one summer where there was really strong rumours that he was going to move to Australia. I don't know if you remember that, but he always came back. He always led us to glory. And it's almost as if that's been shifted to Callum McGregor. Now, every pre-season we hear this argument, don't we?
Yeah. Look, what I would say is any issues with players' pace or sharpness, I don't think you can judge those right now because the whole team is going to be rusty at the moment. The third goal showed that, right? But you can judge players' ability, you can judge where you think they're going to fit into the team, but I don't think you can judge fitness or pace or whatever at this point. It may well be the case as the season goes on. Kalmak does lose a bit of pace because he is getting on in years, but 31 is not old for a footballer these days. And also, like I said, I think we are still very much in the preparation phase of this season. The qualifier is huge, but it's still more than a month away, right? I would everybody just take a step back, all right? Today was not a great game of football, but it was a training session, is what it is, right? It only ended up on the telly because Celtic thought they could monetize it. Let's be honest. It would have been a back, behind closed doors training session otherwise. So don't read too much into this game at all. It's a tuning up exercise for the big games to come, which are Sporting Lisbon and Newcastle. That's when we're hopefully going to see some semblance of what this team is actually going to look like next season.
Mm-hmm. I would like to see, obviously it's not going to be possible with Jota, but I'd like to see the lineup that we spoke about before the game, about Champions League quality, the players that I believe would be your starters in that qualifier, Liam. It would be great to see them. Probably the Newcastle game will be the first sign of, as you say, a semblance of that starting 11. Stevie boy, you're on the YouTube. My goodness, after watching that second half, I wish she hadn't told me we were playing. It was a wee bit like one of the games. I think it was maybe last season or the season before. There was a behind closed doors game where we were on this one of these warm weather camps, Liam, and it was one of the ones. The very fact that we couldn't watch it made it even more. One of the games that you wanted to find out what's happening. It was very difficult to get the starting 11, the score, who scored goals. So absolutely, yeah, they fired it on the schedule today, and I'm glad they did, and I'm glad that we're back talking football again. Love it, you're in. If I can bring your point up, Scouts, love it, Scouts. What was Engels doing with that corner at the end? I did wonder, actually, because I thought to myself, this is your last chance. And I know we're told time and time again, Liam, about, you don't loft a corner in like we did back in the old days to create a bit of chaos in the middle because it's unlike you're going to score, so you just get the ball back into play. But I did feel as though that was a bit unusual and we should have maybe just taken the opportunity. But it's leading us on to the discussion about Arnie Engels. And what I would say is that actually let's group Arnie Engels in with the other two big signings from last season. So we've got Austin Trusty, Arnie Engels, Amadora, and these are guys that, I'll tell you something, last season, Liam, I think those three were the biggest point of discussion. If you were to have a heat map on which players were discussed, those three guys got far more column inches than anybody else. And it was all around the fees that we paid for them and how successful they had been in their full campaigns as permanent additions to Celtic's squad. And what I said near the end of the season and into the pre-season is it's going to be interesting when they get a full pre-season under the belts. Neither of those three players had that at Celtic. They're getting it now. We're moving into their second full seasons as permanent Celtic players now. Can't read too much into the performances up to this point pre-season, Liam, but it's a massive season for all three of those players, isn't it?
Yeah, I think Trusty in particular is giving me cause for concern, because there were obvious issues identified in his game, I think probably about 6 months ago, and I'm still not seeing any sign that they've been fixed. That's worrying. Engels has improved. Ida, I think, has also improved, albeit on a slightly lower gradient, if you know what I mean. But I still think that Trusty hasn't shown the progress that you would expect from a guy who's now a year into his Celtic career.
Well, what I want from Trusty is just to be dominant. That's what I want from him. And I know that, you know, in terms of, you look at a player now and you think, right, he looks as though he's got the physical attributes to be dominant. With that, I think what you need is a bit of aggression. And I think that actually comes into Engels as well. Engels coming into the second half of last season, I've seen a bit of it. It's almost as if they're trying to train that into him, the aggression side of it. You need that in Scottish football, never mind Champions League. But Trusty has lacked that aggression for me as a central defender. I think we've used the examples time and time again. I even spoke about a player like Chris Julien, who seemed to have all the physical attributes that you needed to be that, you know, domineering centre half, Liam. But there were some occasions where he was almost bullied. And I know that we go back to the games against Livingston and Lyndon Dykes, but there was other occasions in Europe where I felt Julien. By the way, I'm not writing him off. I thought, you know, as a player, £7 million signing, the goal against Lazio, the goal in the cup final, it was a good signing for Celtic. But I just think there was a bit of bite missing from him. And it's a wee bit like that with Trusty.
Do you know, there's a thing which has been kind of bugging me for, well, last couple of weeks, particularly looking at some of the players we're linked with. I think that Scottish football in general, we put far too much emphasis on height when we're talking about defenders. The idea that you have to be this tall, physically imposing, yes, but that doesn't necessarily mean tall, right? I mean, right, extreme examples, but two of the best central defenders I've ever watched in the flesh, Carlos Puyol and Stig Tofting of Denmark. They were, you know, sorry, Puyol of Spain, Tofting of Denmark. They were both like about 5'6" or something, right? But they were both absolute beasts and you couldn't get near them. So I think that we put too much emphasis on this guy has to be 6 foot plus. You know, that Inamura is obviously not going to be a centre back the way he's being deployed now, but that was a lot of the chat around Inamura when we signed him initially was, oh, he's only 5'11". I'm like, yeah, but that's not small, right? It's not, you know, I mean, granted, I'm 6'2", so it's a wee bit smaller than me, but it's not small. You can be, yeah, someone in the comments there, Cannavaro is another one. Fantastic defender, one of the best in the world in these days, not especially tall. You know, that it's not the be-all and end-all of being a good defender.
No, you're right. And from what I've seen, and it's too late now, from what I've seen, I felt that Mike Nawrocki was a good defender. Now, maybe he didn't have other elements of his play that Rodgers wanted as a centre-half. Perhaps he didn't. I don't know if it came down to distribution. I don't know if it came down to pace, for example. But when you asked him to defend, he could defend. And we've just obviously loaned him out. That will probably lead to a permanent departure for Mike Nawrocki. And obviously, we are persevering with Austin Trusty, who cost us £6 million. And is the jury out? I would say absolutely it is. They've got £26 million worth of talent there that we're talking about. Ida, Engels, Trusty. Big season for them going into this campaign where there's no caveat. You can't say, oh, but they didn't get a pre-season. You know, they don't know their teammates, etc. That's gone now. You're into your second season and it's time to step up. Paul Byrne, Nygren assist. I thought Nygren's performance as well as his assist was very much a positive. And Ida's goal, only positive. I thought Ida took it very well. Peter Grant always talks about that, doesn't he? Get the number 9 in between the sticks and he will score. He got 20 goals last season. And obviously it still divides opinion. So it's going to be a talking point moving into the new campaign, I'm sure. Johnny Boy, pre-season or not, that second half was just awful. I think this is a huge season for Engels, but it was just more of the same anonymity. Just shows you how people watch games differently. I thought Engels played well in the second half. You know, there was a couple of searching passes where I thought he turned defence into attack very quickly, that transition. But yeah, he's already, I mean, people have set their stall out on Engels. I'm in the camp where I think that he's a very good signing when we bought him at 20 years of age. But we're at that point now, as I say, the caveats are removed, Liam. He's got a season under his belt. He's got Champions League football, international football under his belt. You need to go out there. You need to be more consistent. What I want to see from Engels is more consistency and more aggression. What I want to see from Trusty, more aggression. I mean, listen, Simon Murray will shake up most defenders in the Scottish game. Absolutely. Be alive to it. Be up for it. See it as a challenge. Go in harder. You know, these are the things that I want to see from Trusty moving into the new season. What division does that mob play in? Top tier, but I think they were third from bottom last season, Stevie boys. So not the best. I mean, we're playing the champions midweek, so that'll be a different test entirely. And William O'Toole. Does anyone think that the flatness and fatigued way we played towards the end of last season has had an impact on this pre-season? In the US, we were absolutely fine. Yeah, we were. We were flying. I remember even Palmer playing really, really well. Kuhn, outside of the boot, playing very well indeed. Listen, all I'm going to say, I'm with Liam on this one. I'm not going to get too concerned or anxious about what we've seen so far. Last season, I think we played Queen's Park and Ayr United. You know, Queen's Park scored 4 goals against us, Liam. It was a 6-4 game. You know, that I think that was our second game. This time we're into our third game. I'm not getting too excited by this. As you say, had they not put it on Celtic TV, we wouldn't even have known what was going on. It's all about the fitness, the sharpness at the moment. I'm going to be more interested seeing us against Sporting Lisbon. More interested seeing us against Newcastle, I think, Liam.
Obviously, we'll never know because it won't be discussed publicly, but I'll bet Brendan Rodgers probably wasn't too happy at being told that today's game was being broadcast. He would have probably wanted a proper training session, which you couldn't have because it's on TV. You have to, you know, be seen to be making an effort to win the game and whatever. And yeah, it was something that I noticed today though was that quite a Negrin, the ball across for the goal was beautiful, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'm going to be very harsh here, but he offered more in his first 15 minutes than Kuhn did in his last 15 games at Celtic, if I'm being honest. I've seen more there. I've seen more industry. I've seen more trying to make things happen. There was a chance later on in the second half where Ida broke away and had a shot. The keeper made a very good save, but Negrin had got himself into a really good position in the centre if Ida had just looked up. Now, he's about 8 yards for goal. He's just got the keeper to beat. He's entitled to shoot. That's what strikers do. But I like the fact that Negrin was there trying to make it happen.
Yeah, I look at Negrin as well, and I think that he's almost, you know, old before his time in terms of the fact that he has only turned 24, just turned 24. And the commentators were talking about the amount of first team football he's got under his belt, absolutely. But he's played all over the place as well. You know, he has tried. He's played in Dutch football. He's played in the Danish league, Belgian leagues. He's played in Sweden, and of course, he's played in the international team for Sweden and scored a couple of goals for them as well. So I'm looking at him and I'm thinking a snip so far. Early days, looks like a snip at £1.7 million. Really looking forward to seeing him again during the week. We'll be covering that game as we always do. Half an hour before it kicks off, we will be here talking pre-match, and then at halftime and full time. Got to say thanks everybody. Obviously, we're really needing our football fix because there's over 1,600 watching this stream right now, Liam. Thanks everybody for getting involved. You could be tuning in every single day. You might be visiting Acsom for the very first time. If you haven't subscribed to the channel on YouTube, give us a subscribe, give us a thumbs up. I was talking to somebody during the week. They said, you know, when people of a certain age or a certain vintage get asked to subscribe to things, they think they're getting charged. You don't get charged. Acsom doesn't charge you for content. So subscribe to that channel on the YouTube. Give us a thumbs up. If you want to come and see us live, we've got the Scottish premiere, Liam, of the Ange Postecoglou documentary, Ange and the Boss. That's coming up. I've got links to all the tickets on the socials and on the website as well. And of course, we've got Manny from the Stone Roses and Premo Scream with a Celtic state of mind in August. He's coming to join us at Barazat and Design as well. Brian McClare's pal. Will Brian be there? He might be. He might even end up on the stage if he's there. Thanks everybody for getting involved. Join us again on Monday, 12:30 as always, on A Celtic State of Mind.